Fake news is selling big. Well, that can pass for any news headline, as a study published in Europe shows that disinformation or fake news sites are receiving millions of dollars in advertisement from some of the world's biggest companies, although these companies may be oblivious of this. So what are the details of this report and what are the implications? Let's head to Berlin and get some answers from our partners, the DW. Thomas Sparrow is DW's political correspondent, and he joins me as usual on our cross. Hello, Thomas. Good to have you. What are the highlights of this report?
You already mentioned probably the biggest highlight, Gifty, and that is that disinformation sites, and in particular sites that are considered to be showing disinformation online, are getting a lot of money, hundreds of millions of euros in ad revenue. And that also has to do with the fact of how ad online are placed and how this essentially works. That report, which was published, by the way, in England, shows that it all has to do with a software, because it is ultimately through softwares that these advertisements are placed on sites, and that's why companies, in a way, have found only after the ad is being placed that their content has been put on sites that are deemed to be spreading misinformation. And it is important, Gifty, to stress that we're talking here about a very big challenge. This is something that is also very big, talking about the economic incentives of misinformation, because there may be a political incentive for people or for organizations to send things that are considered to be false, but there is also an economic incentive, and that is what this report actually tries to show, that it is not only about politics, that it is also about the money behind it. And that's why not only governments but also social media platforms have been trying to find ways not only to deal with the political impact of all this, but also try and make sure that that economic incentive goes away.
Well, these big companies that are inadvertently cash cows to these websites, to what extent, I mean, we know that some of them may have not been aware, but to what extent may they be aware of this trend?
Well, according to the report, most of them are unaware, and in fact, DW investigated a bit further and found that German companies may also be involved in that unknowingly. So that is something that it's important to stress, and again, that has to do with the system of how this works. You have on the one hand companies trying to advertise online, on the other hand you have sites where those ads go on, but it is a software that ultimately determines where the ad ends up. So it's only after the ad has been placed that companies know where the ad is appearing, and that is part of the problem. This has been described as a sort of wild west scenario that needs further regulation, that needs a broader response by the industry as a whole, but also maybe a political response as well, to see how this works together and how not only companies can be more aware of where their content actually lands, but also how, as I already mentioned, the economic incentive behind misinformation sites can be reduced. Once you reduce that economic impact, you also reduce the possibility that misinformation is ultimately spread. And let me just tell you one particular case that was reported some time ago of a town in Macedonia here in Europe, where a lot of people have been found to be creating misinformation, sending fake news stories, then placing them online, and once they start being clicked, they end up getting money because of ad revenues. This just shows how complicated this issue is, how difficult it is to resolve it, because, as I said, it has a wide range of different levels, from the economic level to the political level to the social level as well. And that also reflects why the response to all of this has to come not only from the industry, but it also has to come from governments on the one hand and from users as well.
What then are the general implications, Thomas, with this development?
Let's just take a step back for a minute, Gifty, and think about what users do when they have true information, when they have reliable information, when they have researched information. That gives them valuable details that they can use to, for example, make important decisions in their lives or for their communities. They can use that information also when it goes to voting or to playing an important role in democracy. If the information that they are receiving is not true, is considered to be false or fake news, or it considers to be related to disinformation, then that is polluted at the source. Then people cannot make decisions that are based on true, reliable facts. And that, as such, can also affect the way democracy works. So this is why these kinds of developments are considered to be so important and such big challenges. And by the way, challenges that are not only important here in Europe, that are important around the world and also in African countries when we're talking about the political and the economic impact of disinformation. When it comes to the response, governments have gone from creating or designing laws, for example, or task forces or groups that deal with this issue, to also having media literacy campaigns in order to make users more aware of what the risks are and how they can protect themselves. And social media platforms have also been developing strategies to cope with this, because they also play a very important role there. And for example, Facebook has clearly said that they're interested in targeting that economic incentive, and they have tried to say that one way in which they're doing so is by changing the algorithm so that misinformation posts or posts that are considered to be that are actually do not appear as frequently on people's news feeds. In other words, people don't click on that so much, and then ads don't go to those who have created it in the first place. So you can see it is a very big challenge indeed, Gifty.
It is a big challenge indeed. The last time we had a conversation about this, we went on to, we analyzed, you know, what sites people are looking at. One of the sites people were looking at was a porn site, and these fake news tend to be to be found on some of these porn sites, you know, as well. And so it is indeed a big deal. Like you said, there is a training as we speak going on here in Ghana, at the University of Ghana, on disinformation as well and fake news. But what has been the reaction by people to these revelations? Of course, people knew about this already, but with a report, it solidifies it. What are people saying?
I think there is a general sense and a general awareness now that we're talking here about a very big problem, and we're talking about a problem that maybe before was only known to have a very clear political impact, for example, in elections, for example, related to the United States. There's a clear case that has been described on many occasions in the past, but what this report makes absolutely evident is that there is also a very important economic component to all of this, and that if we are to challenge misinformation and challenge these fake news stories, it has to be done not only from a political perspective, in other words, how governments react to this, but also from the economic standpoint as well, trying to make sure that these economic incentives are no longer there. And I think as far as people are concerned, it has also become clear that they have to be more aware of what information they consume, of how they actually deal with that information they consume, and how they can be more aware of what they do with that information. Because yes, there is a lot of true and reliable and verified information out there, but it is becoming more and more difficult for people to actually know what is true and what is not true. I don't know if you're aware of this development, but now we're not only talking about fake news stories in print or online text way, we're also talking about deepfakes. So in other words, videos that appear to show someone saying something that in reality they did not say. And that is actually a development that is concerning governments a lot, that is related to the security of a country. Just imagine if a president is found saying something that in reality he didn't say. So that is why governments and institutions are now trying to deal not only with fake news in a text form, but also trying to understand how these deepfakes are created and how governments, social media platforms and users can better protect themselves when it comes to text, but also when it comes to video and sound.
Every technological breakthrough comes with its own challenges, and this is, I guess, is one of the challenges we've had to deal with the spread of information and the social media, the breadth and length that social media can reach. Thomas, thank you so much for this update, and certainly a conversation we can keep having. Like I said, the DW is organizing a training here in Ghana. Hopefully, these are some of the steps we take to deal with this. Thomas Sparrow is political correspondent with our partners, DW, and Thomas is joining us all the way from Berlin in Germany, here on The Pulse with me, Gifty Ando, up here. Why don't you log on to myjoyonline.com for more news and information. Our carefully selected stories for you. Scroll all the way down for our YouTube channel, and you can follow our programs from there. My name is Gifty Ando. Let's talk showbiz. That's how we wrap up. Do stay and have fun.